Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Indie Zone. My name is Kathy. There has been some question in the community as to what date did Mr. Kohberger become a person of interest in the matter styled as Idaho versus Kohberger. There has been record evidence that it was not December 19th, 2022, as Detective Brett Payne, lead detective in the case, who also signed the Affidavit of Probable Cause asking for Mr. Kohberger's arrest, testified at a hearing on January 23, 2025, that the date that MPD Moscow Police Department law enforcement learned of Mr. Kohberger's name as a possible person involved in the atrocities occurred on December 19th, 2022 in the evening. We have, however, discovered some information released by the Idaho State Police that date was 2 weeks earlier, on December 5th, 2022. The PCA, Affidavit of Probable Cause, signed by Detective Brett Payne, indicates that date was even earlier. And I would like to direct your attention to pages 9 and 10 of the Affidavit of Probable Cause. It states here that on November 25th, 2022, MPD asked law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for a white Hyundai Elantra in the area. On November 29th, 2022, at approximately 12:28 a.m., Washington State University, WSU, police officer Daniel Tiengo queried white Elantras registered at WSU. As a result of that query, he located a 2015 white Elantra with a Pennsylvania license plate. This vehicle was registered to Brian Kohberger, hereafter Kohberger, residing at, and the address is given, in Pullman, Washington. This address is approximately 3/4 of a mile from the intersection of Stadium Way and Cougar Way. Last camera location that picked up the white Elantra. And just by way of background, earlier in the PCA, Detective Payne wrote about a white Elantra, and it was discussed and described as Suspect Vehicle 1 regarding the crimes that occurred at 1122 King Road, and he discussed some alleged sightings of this vehicle on November 13th, 2022, that indicated this location at Stadium Way and Cougar Way in Pullman. The next paragraph continues, stating that same day, at approximately 12:58 a.m., WSU officer Curtis Whitman was looking for white Hyundai Elantras and located a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra, and then gives the address in Pullman in the parking lot, and then states this address is an apartment complex that houses WSU, and we now need to go on to page number 10 of the Affidavit of Probable Cause to continue. This address is an apartment complex that houses WSU students. Officer Whitman also ran the car, and it returned to Kohberger with a Washington tag. I reviewed Kohberg's Washington. I reviewed Kohberg's Washington State driver's license information and photograph. This license indicates that Kohberger is a white male with a height of 6 feet and weighs 185 pounds. Additionally, the photograph of Kohberger shows that he has bushy eyebrows. Kohberger's physical description is consistent with the description of the male DM saw inside the King Road residence on November 13th. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can interject a few comments, a few notations, a few opinions, completely rhetorical questions pursuant to the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. In this last sentence, it appears that it's not DM, but it is Detective Payne who is coming up with the conclusion that Mr. Kohberger had bushy eyebrows, described by DM. However, it appears here that what Detective Payne is doing is making a description of Mr. Kohberger as if he were inside the residence, seeing him. I would suggest perhaps what should have been done and might have been done, as other agencies do when they're looking to have an eyewitness identify a potential suspect, would have been to throw down 5 or 6 photographs of different people and asked DM if she could identify the person that she states that she saw inside the residence on November 13th. In addition, it appears here, based on Detective Payne's own words under oath that he wrote in the Affidavit of Probable Cause, December 29th, 2022, that Mr. Kohberger was on law enforcement's radar at MPD on November 29th, 2022. And then approximately 1 week later is when his name came up on documentation that appears in Idaho State Police investigatory records relative to the crimes at 1122 King Road. Both of these officers, by the way, were listed on the defense witness list for the trial that never happened, both Officer Whitman and Officer Tiengo. There's one more item that I would like to bring up, and we see here where Detective Payne is referring to Mr. Kohberger as Kohberger and Kohberg here in the Affidavit of Probable Cause. We had previously brought to your attention that records from the Idaho State Police list Brian with 2 different last names as well. So this is not the first time that this has occurred, where Mr. Kohberger is referred by 2 different names in official records. Here in the PCA, it happened on December 29th, 2022, and then again in records later that the Idaho State Police had in their possession after Mr. Kohberger's arrest. If you have any comments, any thoughts, any opinions relative to this matter, please leave them here. Until next time, this is Kathy. Thank you for joining us here today.